dreams, and it's true for us as a society and as a species. We have to take some risks, we have to challenge ourselves in order to push ourselves, and I can't wait to see what we discover during my career and for generations to come.
The very capable and talented Zena Cardman, the commander of Crew-11. Next up, astronaut Michael Fink, a veteran of 3 missions and 4 spacewalks, as he reflects on what keeps him coming back to space.
Human beings, part of our nature, part of who we are, our identity is explorers. Because every time we explore, we improve our lives and our situations. It's just natural. My name is Mike Fink, and I'm the pilot for NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, home of the mighty Steelers, and it was a great time to grow up, lots of great educational opportunities, a time that was tough economically, but a place where we knew that dreams could come true. When I was like 2 and 3 years old, my parents would wake me up from whatever nap I was taking to watch moon landings. We did many moon landings back in the late 60s and early 70s, and that made a big impression on me. So I knew that back then, even when I was like 3, that I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go walk on the moon. I wanted to go explore space. So I learned to read so I could read more about space, and the more I read, the more excited I became. When I was in high school, I didn't know what engineering was. I knew what math and science were, physics. I was kind of good at that. Math. I took a leap of faith and went to an engineering program at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, thankfully paid for by an Air Force ROTC scholarship, and then hustling with side gigs on the weekends. And I got to study airplanes and rockets, 2 of my favorite things. So I was able to graduate from MIT with 2 degrees, and then the summer after graduation, I had a really wonderful opportunity to study in Soviet Union. Fortunately, I'd studied Russian language, so I knew enough Russian to go with some colleagues, and we spent the summer at Moscow Aviation Institute studying cosmonautics, and then I spent the next year at Stanford University getting a master's in aeronautics and astronautics. I love the space station. I helped build it. I helped the first modules get ready here on planet Earth, and have had the joy of living aboard the space station for 2 long-duration missions so far. We've learned from the International Space Station that space is a great place to really understand more about the universe. When we are aboard the International Space Station, we're still gravitationally connected to planet Earth, but we're free-falling, so like we're in microgravity. So you take that big G out of the equation, and then you can find out what's really going on physically. We're also outside the atmosphere, so we can look to the universe beyond us without atmospheric interference. When I'm on a spacewalk, I can look out to the whole universe, and I can see how small our planet is and how big and wonderful the rest of the universe is. And it's calling to us. We need to explore and go see the whole universe that's out there. Space exploration is something that really speaks to me as a person, right? We all kind of have our passions. And for me, since I was like 2 and 3 years old, I wanted to go to space, explore space, and I've had a chance to do that. Half my life I've been an astronaut. I've really, really enjoyed exploring space.
Pilot Mike Fink and his team, as you just saw them pass the vehicle assembly building where Artemis II, a moon rocket, is being stacked. Let's hear now from JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui on returning to station, representing Japan, and what this mission means to him.
I think humankind has a desire to explore and also expand our area of activities. Space is a great place to explore because Earth is so small. We still have unknown places, but Earth is, generally speaking, so small compared with space. My name is Kimiya Yui. I'm a mission specialist for NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station. I was born in very, very small village in Nagano Prefecture. So up there, I was able to see very, very beautiful stars in night skies. When I was a little boy, I did stargazing, and I loved stars. I really want to know everything on our universe, and I want to go everywhere as long as I live. When I was already like 10 years old, I already wanted to become an astronaut or astronaut. I graduated from the National Defense Academy, and after that I entered Japanese Air Force, Japan Air Self-Defense Force, then become a fighter pilot, then a test pilot, and then became an astronaut. We do science in space because we have constant microgravity in the ISS. We cannot achieve that condition on the Earth. Space station actually contributing our knowledge, and also we can produce new materials or medicines in order to make our future brighter. Going to Moon or Mars is very difficult, so we need to test our materials, and ISS is a great test bed. So Crew-11, we are going to have a lot of experiments on ISS, and JAXA especially, we are going to have new cargo vehicle, HDV-X. The vehicle itself is a little bit lighter, but we can carry more stuff to the ISS. 10 years ago, I went to space for the first time. It's changed a lot. And for astronauts, it became much more convenient to live. For example, we didn't have a good place for cooking. Now we have gallery. I was able to see a lot of stars and also beautiful Earth or moon. This mission inspired me, and I really want to pass that actually inspiration to other people on the ground. ISS is one of the best examples to have a dream and work together and make the dream come true. So if you see ISS in the night sky, please think about your dream, about how to make your dream come true.
And finally, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov, sharing his thoughts as he prepares for his very first flight to space.
Бесконечный космос открывает бесконечные возможности для человечества, поэтому есть необходимость осваивать Солнечную систему, осваивать просторы за пределами Солнечной системы. А для того, чтобы это сделать в будущем, мы должны закладывать эту базу. My name is Oleg Platonov, and I am a mission specialist for NASA's SpaceX Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station. Я родился в большом индустриальном городе в России, в городе Челябинске. Это моя родина. Я занимался в патриотических кружках, связанных с авиацией и космонавтикой, поэтому уже в мое детство я задумывался о космосе. У меня много целей в этом полете. Прежде всего, я хочу полететь на мощной огромной ракете в космос, долететь до Международной космической станции, сесть возле большого иллюминатора на станции, посмотреть на нашу красавицу Землю, и это будет вдохновлять меня работать все лучше и лучше. Мы можем получать новые данные о нашей Земле, о Солнечной системе, о космических лучах, о нашей Вселенной, о жизни микроорганизмов в космосе, о здоровье человека, о получении новых лекарств, о путях улучшения конструктивных материалов и внутренняя потребность человека исследовать все, что находится вокруг него. Хочется узнать все новое, новое и новое, расширяя горизонты своего знания, что границы открыты, что мы можем летать в космос, что мы можем лететь дальше, все дальше и дальше, за пределы нашей Земли, за пределы Солнечной системы. И это будет вдохновлять уже не только нас, но и не предыдущие, а следующие поколения.
And those are all 4 members of Crew-11. If you're just joining us, we are currently T-minus 3 hours and 1 minute until liftoff of those 4 individuals who make up Crew-11. Liftoff to the International Space Station. And this is their ride, a Falcon 9 rocket with a spacecraft called Endeavour sitting at the very top. That crew walkway that you see connecting the launch tower and the rocket, astronauts will soon be walking across that walkway and into their spacecraft to get strapped in to go to space. Right now, they just arrived at the base of the pad, and here is a beautiful view of Launch Pad 39A, which sits just 500, 600 feet away from the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, the beach there, which, as you can see from the calm state of the ocean, we have very light winds, we have sunshine, we have a beautiful day for launch. 90% go is what our launch weather officer is reporting out for weather conditions at the time of liftoff. That time, 12:09 and 24 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. As we gaze up at the sky, seeing just some very thin cirrus clouds up ahead, those not a problem at all when we get ready to launch. We're green across the board right now, running just a little bit behind on the procedures out at the pad. At last check, about 10 minutes, but SpaceX crews are working diligently to catch that time up. And this mission operation timeline, it should be noted, has plenty of margin in it. What you're about to see now is the astronauts walking up to their rocket to get a look at the 1.8 million pounds of thrust that can be generated by this machine as it takes them up into space. That moment coming up in just a few minutes, Nick.
Yeah, they just pulled up to the launch pad. Got about 3 hours until liftoff, and so this is your last bathroom break before you're strapped into a seat and hostage for the next 3 hours. So much needed respite, and then but it's once you ride that elevator up to the top, it's just this stark contrast. You see your rocket up close and personal, and it's this amazing feat of engineering. And then the backdrop is the beautiful Florida coast and the waves crashing onto the beach and a breeze in the face. And it's just a spectacular moment once you get to the top of the launch tower.
You painted quite a word picture there, and we are about to see what that looks like through the eyes of the astronauts as we document their journey up the launch tower, across the walkway, and into their capsule. In the meantime, we want to take some questions that we've been asking and getting and receiving from our audience that's watching around the world. Those who have put their questions forth to our astronaut co-host, Nick Hague, a brigadier general with the Space Force and a NASA astronaut. Austin asks, my son, Knox, age 8, would like to know, how do you get to the space station when it orbits around the Earth so fast? And that is fast.
Countdown, advanced team have completed their preps for crew arrival, and crew are heading up the tower on schedule.
That's great news. Sounds like they made up all of that 10 minutes that they were behind. That's a great call out. Yes, station goes 17,500 miles per hour. How are you going to catch up with that?
Yeah, so Knox has got it. He's got his finger right on it. You've got to start going that fast. So the rocket's going to take off going vertical, and it's accelerating. But after a few minutes into flight, the rocket pitches over and is basically going horizontal and continuing to accelerate as it falls back down toward the Earth. And so you're turning all of that fuel, the 1.8 million pounds of thrust that you were talking about, you're turning all of that into velocity. So right now they're going 0 miles per hour. After 9 minutes of lighting that rocket, you're going to be going 17,500 miles per hour. And it's timing. So that's why we're counting down 2 hours and 56 minutes to liftoff to the second, because that's when the Earth rotates underneath the International Space Station's orbital plane, and then that's the moment that we have to take off. So it's an instantaneous launch window.
And that instantaneous launch window at exactly 12:09 and 24 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. You talk about catching up to the ISS, the day that we have and the time gets them there because we are in the same orbital plane. Our first two astronauts clear from the bio break. Zena Cardman, Mike Fink walking out and getting a look at their rocket, arm in arm.
It's a tall rocket, so it's hard to actually look up that. So you've got to lean back to be able to really see it.
You know what? It looks like Mike Fink, who's on the right-hand side, has a little more lean. What's interesting about him is he's wearing an upgraded suit called an R2. The Zena, let's go, just circling her arms. Let's just go.
Yeah.
But he's wearing an upgraded suit that SpaceX says has more mobility and more flexibility in it.
Well, he just demonstrated that.
Well,
I
he
guess.
sure did, didn't
Oh
he?
no, Xena wasn't going to be outdone. No, it's awesome to see them. You know, the excitement, the emotions that you feel as you're getting ready to do something like launch into space. Astronauts are humans. They feel all those same emotions, and so it's fun to see some of the excitement come out and on display.
Spillover right there on the launch pad, because there will be time for things to get serious once they get into the cabin. We turn on the launch escape system and start flowing propellants. But right now, just like you said, a nice moment at the base of the launch pad where those emotions spill out. But talking about the suit, Mike Fink is the only one who is wearing, you can contrast his suit with Xena's. It looks exactly the same, but it's constructed differently. It has a circumventual zipper as opposed to a vertical zipper. So as you know, you got into your spacesuit like a onesie. His spacesuit has been upgraded and redesigned and has that circular zipper that allows 7 inches of flexibility in the suit, so you can adapt it to different body sizes. Whereas the suit that you wore and that Xena is wearing and the rest of the crew has to be tailor-made, and there's not much adjustment on those.
Yeah, and it's also a demanding engineering challenge because it has to be mobile when it's unpressurized, but then when you inflate this, you also have to create a volume where you can be inside of this rigidized suit and be in there comfortably for hours if need be. And so that's a challenge to get a suit that does that. And so this next generation of suit is designed to be able to accommodate that wider range a little easier.
It'll be good for the astronauts, more comfortable, more flexible, especially, as you mentioned, when you pressurize it, which I guess it's like a giant, just human-sized balloon. This is a great shot from our flight operations team here at Kennedy. You can see the 2 crew members, somewhat small, getting ready to enter the crew access arm. And here they come, Commander Xena Cardman and pilot Mike Fink, getting ready to board Dragon Endeavour. And they are all smiles.
Ear-to-ear grins. It's awesome to see.
And what a beautiful vista behind them as you look out at the views of the spaceport. Mike just gave us the 2 guns. He's a character. Now, before they get into the spacecraft, some important business at hand here, wanting to make sure that no FOD or foreign object debris goes into the spacecraft. So the 2 suit technicians and the closeout crew there, making sure that they take care of that, as well as this tradition right here, Nick.
Yeah. Got to sign that wall. That means you're going. And so every crew that's launched off of, commercial Crew Dragon launched off of 39A has been able to sign around that NASA meatball. And it's little moments like that that connect you with the legacy of the program and make you feel connected in a way where you understand, hey, I'm taking the next step, and it's an important step. There's a lot of people that got me to the point where I can take this step, and hopefully there's a lot of people coming after me that are going to continue to take steps.
Countdown. Crew are in the white room, and this is on schedule.
You'll hear these audio call-outs from time to time from the crew operations and resource engineer with updates, and we'll pause to listen to them. Here are the 2 mission specialists now doing their rocket recline, looking up at their ride.
I think they studied technique from Xena and Mike because they had it down.
Seemed like kind of like a rock and roll kind of pose, didn't it? They will be riding the other elevator. This, of course, is Heritage Space Shuttle equipment. Those elevators, they used to just have numbers in them. And they're headed up to the 275-foot level, so 28 stories high are the crew on the left, all the way up at the top. The crew at the bottom now getting ready to ascend that distance. SpaceX changed the buttons inside a little while ago to have the top button for 275 say
Space.
Space. Yeah. Did you punch it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. I would like to go to space. Can you press space for it? Did your fellow crew member say, can space please? Can you press that button for me?
Make everybody wait uncomfortably long.
That is something you would do.
Maybe.
So Mike, carefully getting into the spacecraft here, which that takes a bit of physical effort, right? You don't want to touch that seal because that is what protects you from the hostile environment of space.
Yeah, absolutely. That side hatch is going to stay closed the entire time you're in space. The next time you're going to open that is when you're bobbing around in the Pacific, and the recovery teams open it up to get you out.
And
of course, we're going to do leak checks on that here in a little bit,
Absolutely.
and it's important to be able to pass that. So you're hyper vigilant about hardware, and you mentioned that transition to seriousness as you're walking out that gantry. That's when you start to build and flip that switch in your mind of, okay, this is spaceflight hardware. This is the equipment that's going to keep me alive. You become that hyper-vigilant person that you need to be.
Last two crew members there, the mission specialists, walking down the crew access arm. And the final two crew members, mission specialists Oleg Platonov and Kimiya Yui, arm in arm, thumbs up, ready to go. Split screen there, looking outside and inside the White Room. You mentioned the mission. This crew is leaving the ground with a baseline of at least 6 months, half a year in space, ladies and gentlemen. But they are being considered, and research and study and certification process is underway to expand this to an 8-month increment, 2 months longer. And so the plan is for the commercial crew program, which is here at NASA, is to certify the spacecraft Dragon to be able to support them for a return 8 months later. We know they can live on station for 8 months. We've had astronauts live there for a year. But that is a long-duration space flight. And so the hope is that they certify them for 8 months and they can return 8 months later, hoping to get it by October.
Yeah, it's a sixth flight of Endeavour, and there's a lot of things that need to be looked into. From a crew perspective, the mindset has to be, I'm going for 8 months. And then if it ends up not turning out that way, then that's I guess a pleasant surprise or unfortunate, depending on your perspective at the moment, because every day in space is a gift. No, it'll be exciting for them. And like you said, we've had people up there. One of my crew members, Christina Cook, was up there a year. She launched with me on MS-12. So we know how to do it, and we know how to keep people healthy when they stay up there that long. It really comes down to expectations and expectation management with crew members as well as families, as well as the entire team that has to support this particular mission, because it's not just the crew and their families, but that entire support network is on call while they're on orbit.
That's an interesting point to think about. I hadn't thought about just how that kind of puts the family, as you mentioned, on call as that entire time. They have the moments where they get to connect with you via video phone and high-speed connection, but as long as you're up there, They know that you're not here on Earth. You're in space.
Yeah.
And you and your crew are being supported by this international laboratory, which has been doing it for 25 years come November 2nd. You're watching live launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's Crew-11 launch to the International Space Station. I'm Daryl Nail, and I'm joined by NASA astronaut and Brigadier General Nick Hague. We've counted down about an hour and 20 minutes so far, and we're cruising to liftoff. T-minus 2 hours and 44 minutes. T0 is 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time. A look at the signatures on the wall inside the White Room. And I would love to see if we could make out my co-host's signature there.
You
Nick
won't.
Hague?
You won't.
No?
I launched off Slick 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Indeed you did.
Yeah, so there's 2 lonely signatures over there on Space Launch Complex 40 right now.
That's right, and that was a late change, and my apologies for that, because you were initially supposed to launch off of 39A.
Yes, it was. We were the first to launch off. We were actually the first humans to launch off of that launch complex. The certification process you mentioned, the certification process for extending the life of Endeavour. Same kind of thing happens for the ground station as the launch complexes, and they were able to get that process done in time to support us to be able to launch off there. So it was a thrill to be able to be a member of the Space Force and launch off of a Space Force launch complex.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you're the only 2 signatures there.
Yeah. Well,
So,
hopefully
I mean,
we can
that's
fix that. Hopefully
yeah,
we can fix that.
Yes, absolutely. SpaceX has 2 launch pads here that are human rated for spaceflight, and that gives them great redundancy, great capability as well for NASA to have access to. Right now, the teams are working in parallel. The crew members inside Dragon getting settled into their seats that they will ride up into space, while outside the closeout crew handles the matter of making sure that the seal's integrity around the side hatch is maintained. And then once they get them all settled and finish up their work inside with the crew, they'll depart. You can see number 22 still inside. The support crew will come out of the capsule, and they'll shut that hatch that you see right there, that side hatch. As Nick mentioned, when that is shut and they've secured it, they will leak test it to make sure it can withstand the rigors of the harsh environments of space. But in order to see and communicate with the crew that's inside, both of the closeout crew members here taking a knee.
Yeah, you can see a couple of the ninjas inside. They're, principally getting everybody strapped in nice and snug. Then they're also providing them with some of their personal equipment. You see the white satchels that they'll wear on their thigh. It's a place to put their tablet, as well as some writing utensils and some other things that they may need in terms of personal gear. And make sure everything's situated, because once you're strapped in, they don't want you coming out of those straps until you're floating around.
Certainly want all that in order and in place for the very exciting ride up into space, but it's also going to be a long one, Nick. This is a 38.8-hour phasing, which means from the time that they lift off to the time that they dock to the International Space Station, almost 40 hours in space. This is the longest ride to space so far for NASA's commercial crew program, flying the Dragon, which we are now in our 12th flight, Crew-11, the 11th operational mission, but we have to include Demo 2, which was the first test flight.
Yeah, 40 hours is a long time. So it only takes, less than 10 minutes to get to space. And then, this gets back to the question before of how do you catch up to the space station? Well, we phasing is the word that we use, but essentially in different orbital altitudes you move different speeds, and so we adjust the orbital altitude of the Dragon capsule to allow it to catch up to the space station, and in this case it's going to take 40 hours to do. Most of that time, a few minutes after they have arrived on orbit, they're going to be able to take their spacesuits off, and then essentially you're camping out inside the Dragon capsule, waiting for those 40 hours to elapse so that you can dock and open the hatch and get to work.
That's astronaut Nick Hague, commander of Crew-9, flew just a couple missions ago for NASA. Also flew...
SpaceX Dragon, ready for com check.
SpaceX copies, we are cleared. So, seat 1, seat 2, seat 3, seat 4, com check.
Seat 1, loud and clear.
2, loud and clear.
3, loud and clear. Seat 4, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical com check complete. Report when ready for seat rotation.
And so you just heard from each one of the crew members on board as they went through all of their communications with the Crew Operations and Resource Engineer, otherwise known as the Core. You heard him communicating with each one of the crew members just now. As I was mentioning, Nick Hague flew 2 Soyuzes to space. The first one didn't make it to station, was an in-flight abort, came back down to the ground. You flew again the second time. On MS-12, you did make it to station. We are getting ready to do the suit leak checks, but first, we want to take some social questions as we go along. Nick Hague is our astronaut expert at the ready. If you want to submit a question, please do. We would love to hear from you. Just use hashtag AskNASA on the platforms that we have on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. And we have a question in on the lower right hand of your screen. Yes, Benny asks, what was the hardest part in becoming an astronaut?
I think that's a different answer depending on which astronaut you ask. There's so many things that we have to train to be able to do, whether that's, operate high-performance jets, aircraft, spacecraft, or learn the engineering behind all the systems on board of those that keep us alive, to the medical support that you might need to be able to provide because you need to be the doctor for the crew. But I think for me, the single most challenging aspect was learning a second language at the age of 38. And, getting selected, and the first day on the job, I started my Russian language training because to be on board the space station, you have to be able to speak English and Russian, regardless of where you come from. So, Kimiya, native Japanese, but he has to be able to speak English and Russian.
Right.
And so it's amazing how difficult it is if you didn't grow up learning a second language very young, how hard it is to rewire your brain late in
Dragon,
life.
ready for seat rotation.
Copy, ready for seat rotation. All other teams are ready, so we will be initiating seat rotation now.
Copy.
And so you're about to see those seats articulate upwards. This is their entry position, but they will now be articulated into launch position so that they are resting on their backs and able to see those screens just above them, just above the heads of the pilot and commander. You can see Zena Cardman currently touching some of the buttons in the screen on just ahead of her, the heads-up display. And there they go. Getting some waves from the camera person who is on the launch tower right before they back out and shut the hatch. Boots up.
Yep, that position is important, because when you're launching, you want to make sure that that G-force is coming through your chest, because it's easier for your body to handle. But then when you're landing and the impact of landing, you want to make sure that you're in that more upright orientation. It's all for crew safety. It does allow them to see the displays better.
Dragon SpaceX seats are in the launch position. With that, you are go for Section 2, suit leak check preparation.
And now that they can see those displays better, they can start operating them. And so Zena's going to step through suit leak checks here with the rest of the crew.
I did not know that they articulated them down for re-entry.
Yeah, after the main chute's open, then they will they rotate down.
How about that?
Actually, it's once you come back through a certain G level on re-entry, that's the trigger, and then they rotate, and then you
automatically come down?
Yeah, you get chutes and everything else.
Now that we have Crew-11 seated inside of the spacecraft, we want to go back and hear the story of your first spaceflight, Nick, which was, to say the least, an adventurous one. One that did not end with you getting to the International Space Station, but rather an in-flight abort. This helps us underscore just how important safety is in this moment as the astronauts prepare. So here you are, a number of years ago, getting ready to launch for MS-10, giving a wave goodbye. Talk me through your first spaceflight.
Yeah, you know, when I look at this picture, it almost snaps me straight back. It's a beautiful fall day in the steppes of Kazakhstan. You know, we're on, you know, the same launch pad there that Yuri Gagarin launched into space on. And so you feel that deep connection, that legacy I talked about, the human exploration of space. And so we're getting ready to walk up to the elevator. There's a few stairs. It's a turn back photo op and wave to the management that's taken you all the way up to the base of the rocket that's sitting there, that's white with frost because it's full of rocket fuel at that point, and you're on your way. So, I mean, it's everything you dream of. It's at that point, I've spent 40 plus years dreaming about that day happening, and then liftoff.
Copy, tear complete. You have a go for Section 3, suit leak check.
So as we listen in, the suit leak checks.
Go for Section 3.
They will pressurize the suits of the crew inside the cabin. Very important matter. As you're lifting off here, what are you feeling?
You know, in many respects, the feeling of the Soyuz lifting off the launch pad is very similar to Dragon. The rockets are about the same size. You feel just kind of this slowly increasing pressure of being pushed down into your seat. The rumble and the kind of the subtle vibration as you're going, but it's pretty smooth. You know, I'd liken it to being in an electric car and somebody just kind of smashing the accelerator, pushing you into your seat, and you're off. And it was, you know, a smooth ride for the first 2 minutes leading up to the point where those external boosters you see on the base of the rocket are empty, and then they need to separate from the rocket.
And that's what led to this moment right here, Nick, when those boosters didn't do quite what they were supposed to.
Yeah, one of them didn't. They're supposed to propel themselves away from the center, the core stage. One of them that didn't do that and actually impaled the core stage, caused it to essentially disintegrate in that split second. So we're 30 miles above the Earth, going 4,000 miles an hour, kind of pointed straight up. As that happens, it tilts us a little bit, and in that second in which all that occurs, the launch escape system pulls us, my crewmate Alexei Ovchinin, the commander on the mission, and I to safety.
And that shot is the shot before. If we look back to that one, that it's blurry because that's a screenshot from just how violently things were shaking.
Yeah,
inside.
there was in that instant, the indications to us are a flashing red light, an alarm's going off, and then there's a little red indicator that says there's a rocket emergency, and then you're also being shaken kind of side to side for a second or so. And then it's peaceful, because at that point we're going so fast, we've come off, we're just kind of coasting uphill in this slow tumble to the edge of space. And I can remember looking out as we got to the top of that trajectory and seeing the dark black of space and the curve of the Earth below, and thinking to myself, well, we're not going to get there today.
Just not going to make it.
Yeah. And so, in the moment, you have those little moments where the reality of the situation pops out. Now it's, it starts to set in, okay, what do I need to do to survive? And that's get back into the procedures.
Right. And so that view we saw from looking up in the sky, your rocket is coming apart. You no longer can ride that into space. It's done. Now you're on the emergency systems. And you come down back to Earth. And that's you on the right, in the middle, right middle, hugging your wife.
Yeah.
And that looks like quite the deep embrace.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the moment when you're responding, the training kicks in, you're able to compartmentalize all of the emotion of the situation. It's in the aftermath of that, that's less than 6 hours after we had launched that we're back at the aerodrome there, and that's when the emotions, you're human, that's when it comes out. And Katie had witnessed all of that and gone through that roller coaster ride at the same time, along with my kids and my family that were all there, with less information than I had, because I was going through it. There was, probably 20 minutes where she didn't know what the outcome was.
Dragon, we see the same. Closeout team will perform final closeout steps and then exit the capsule. You can proceed to Section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close hatch.
And just a quick note.
Copies. Proceeding Section 4. Wilco.
We are still tracking the operations inside the Dragon Endeavour that you see there. They are doing checkouts of the suits, pressurizing them, getting ready for launch. As we listen to a very important story that Nick Hague just told us about surviving an in-flight anomaly where his rocket came apart, but the launch escape system for Soyuz saved his life and the life of his crewmate and brought them back to their families.
Yeah, the way you phrase that's important. The launch escape system. The engineers that developed the escape system, the people in the factory that assembled it, all of these people that I don't get to meet or would not normally get to meet. The space program, the human exploration of space, is built on trust. Trust in that everybody who's got a job is committed to being perfect in that job. And it's not just the crew that rides on top of the capsule, but it's everybody. And you never know when your decision, your responsibility, your action is going to be the one that saves the day.
Absolutely. And that's why you often hear so many times the engineers uttering how important it is to get the job right, to do it right, to make sure everything is ready for launch. And this crew has their launch escape system. We will go through their checks, we'll check the health of it, and we'll also arm it for launch.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX, Dragon, loud and clear.
Core has you loud and clear. Teacher's comm check is complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon, DC on countdown 1, comm check.
DC, Dragon, loud and clear.
DC loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD, Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear as well. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground.
You're listening to communication
Dragon,
checks
MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
through each of the 3 paths to this spacecraft.
MD, Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1 with a comm check.
LD, Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear. Stand by for comm check on Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD, Dragon to ground, comm check.
LD, Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear.
Dragon SpaceX, launch configuration comm checks are complete.
Dragon copies, and crew are ready for side hatch closure.
Copy, crew readiness for side hatch closure. Closeout team is taking final steps in prep for that closure, so stand by for that in a few minutes. The vehicle will then transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Dragon copies, Wilco.
Those communication checks, Nick, were really important for each of the crew members to be able to speak to some very important members of the launch team.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got the comm checks you've been hearing with Core, which is really the voice from the SpaceX control room to Dragon. But you've also got the launch director, the mission director in there as well. And then it gets more complex because you're checking multiple different ways that you're going to be able to get the communications there, whether going direct from ground to Dragon or whether using the TDRS relay satellites. So communications critical, being able to verbally talk, but then the other connection that you can't forget about is the telemetry and the vehicle communication down to the ground. Dragon is a highly autonomous vehicle and has a pretty close couple with mission control on the ground to be able to monitor all of that automation.
You're watching launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's Crew-11 mission to the International Space Station. Nick Hague, our astronaut co-host today, walking you through the operations, just told a very powerful and moving story about his first launch, which ended with a flight abort, but brought him and his crew members safely to the ground, back to his family. He launched again on MS-12, but that story brought forth a question on social that we want to take now. We're taking your questions live and bringing them to Nick, who's answering them as we go. So Oscar asks, Nick, you're one of the very few people in history who have ever aborted in flight. How did it feel as it happened?
Yeah. We spend so much time training for what to do when things go wrong. I'd venture that we spend about 95% of our training focused on what to do in the event that something goes wrong. And so the situation of the abort is one that Alexei and I performed in the simulator about 8 months before we launched and experienced it. And so there's the one time in the sim. It's a very short simulation. The actual flight was less than 20 minutes. The simulation's less than 20 minutes. But we had run those procedures. And the sum total of all of that training is that you get very disciplined at running procedures because you know that those procedures are the things that are going to keep you safe when things don't go right. So in the moment, there is the oh boy moment when it's happening. The alarm's going off, the lights flashing, everything's kind of shaking, and it takes you a second or two to fully process exactly what's happening. And then there's I had the realization that if this was going to be a really bad day, it would have happened. So I've got a chance. so the best way to protect Alexei and I is for both of us to do our procedures and focus on those. And so you compartmentalize all of those emotions. You kind of set those to the side and you focus on doing your job. And so we run through the procedures and we talk with Mission Control in Moscow, and surprisingly, you know, I spent so much time in Star City training, that Russian that I was talking about being painful to learn, that is just naturally coming out because all of our communications are in Russian. And then it's not until you touch the ground, the search and rescue forces come and extract you. You know, they were there within like 10 minutes. They come and extract us and pull us out onto the parachutes. It's at that moment when your body can relax. You can stop focusing on all the things you need to do to be safe because you know you're safe, and then that's when shock kind of rolls over you. And your body just tries to process everything that happened. We're human. You can't bottle that stuff up forever. And so it was you could hear the waver in my voice when I called Katie and on the satellite phone and said, "Hey, I'm okay." I actually had to leave a voicemail because she had her phone off.
Oh no.
But we have that voicemail, and you know I've been able to listen to it, and it's pretty amazing.
Wow. Thank you, Oscar, so much for that question. And thank you, Nick, for that beautiful answer. We are continuing to document Crew-11's steps through their mission operational timelines, getting ready for launch. You saw this closeout crew remove a protective cover around the seal. Now they are examining that seal and documenting, taking pictures of it, because once they shut that door, it needs to be as airtight as they can possibly get it, since you're going into the vacuum of space and it needs to protect all 4 crew members inside.
Yeah, it doesn't. A single strand of hair across the seal can be enough to cause it to fail the leak check. So it's got to be completely pristine. It's got to be pristine.
And we've had that happen in previous missions where exactly just that. A hair ended up on the seal, and once they did the pressure check, they saw it, opened it back up, found it, removed it, and then resealed it, and they were good to go for launch. And so there's a bit of margin in this countdown, and we're in that kind of flexible time right now where they have time to work through methodically on this procedure. Nick, we don't want to end the story with the end of MS-10. We want to go to MS-12, which was the next space flight, your next launch. Here you are now with a crew of 3. You said, "I'm going back."
Yeah. That's the job. I mean, we explore because it's important, and so that doesn't change launch to launch to launch. The mindset to get back on top of the rocket isn't any different the first time than it is the second time, than it is the third time. It's, why am I willing to accept this risk? Why is my family willing to accept this risk? And it's because what we're doing up there is so important. The scientific discovery, the learning about the human body and how we interact with the environment around us, and more about the universe around us, that's just so important. And so that's why you do it. And so this time, night launch. So I got a day launch and a night launch, a twofer. And
lucky you.
It was beautiful. And you saw Christina had joined. She was going up for a year-long mission. And Alexei and I gave it another shot, and it was flawless all the way to docking. A spectacular flight.
And this was in 2019.
2019.
Just a little less than a year after MS-10 in October of 2018.
Yeah, 5 months. So we had the launch. You know, so we had our launch abort, and then 2 months later. 2 months later, MS-11 launched, and they had fixed the problem. They diagnosed what the problem was with the rocket, and then 5 months later, we were on board. it takes a lot to keep the station going. We've been doing it for 25 years, and so that drumbeat of rotations of crews has to keep going.
Absolutely, and you fulfilled your role, and that photo we just saw was the completion of a successful mission to the International Space Station when you returned from space and were being brought out of that capsule.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic because where our abort landed was in the normal landing zone. We landed there almost a year to the day later in that landing zone. And so it was the culmination of a pretty interesting year, needless to say.
How about that? As you look around, right, and
Yeah.
go, I remember this place. But you felt a lot different.
Yes, absolutely. It's spaceflight changes your perspective. You know, that overview effect that everybody talks about, the way you perceive the globe and how connected we are and just how special the Earth is. It's profound. I wish we could get more people up there.
I hear this time and again from other astronauts that
The more, we're almost up to 700 people now that have gone into space. I'd love that to be, 700,000 people, even if it's for short periods of time. You know, as a veteran that's done a suborbital flight as well as an orbital flight, yes. It's all good.
I'm sure many of our audience, I know I would love to go someday, and that's of course the aim of the Commercial Crew program, is to make space more accessible to more people. And so, finally, your most recent mission, 2024, in September of that year, not too long ago, you launched back into space on Crew-9. This, of course, launched from right here on the Space Coast, Launch Complex 40, as you mentioned, the first crewed mission from that pad. But there was only 2 of you. We've talked about this. This was a crew of 2 for a special reason. You had an important mission for Crew-9.
Yeah, the seat 1 and 4 there you can see are empty on the uphill portion, and and that was to accommodate Butch and Sonny coming back home with Alex and I 6 months later. So we were launching on a normal rotational mission to the station, and planning to do our 6-month long duration mission, and job 1, as soon as we opened that hatch, was integrating Butch and Sonny into the Crew-9 crew, and then continuing to do that research mission.
There you are, lifting off.
I got to say that the weather today is so much better than it was back then. We had a hurricane blow through a day or so before, and then there was a window and a little hole in the weather, and we shot through it. I think they've got a better weather today.
And there you are with your full crew of 4 on the way back home.
Yeah, you can see Butch in the far field there. Sonny's just off the camera, close to us, and yeah, coming home.
A very successful mission, Crew-9, bringing back home Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. I imagine, did you have to kind of, wrangle Sonny out of that space station? She loves being in space.
I think it's universal. I mean, you want to get home to see your family after being gone for that long. You want to get back to some of the things you miss about being on Earth, but you're also sad to close the hatch and to leave that environment up there that's just so special. You never know when you're going to get back, if you're ever going to get back, because everybody's future is, you just don't know, and it is just so, it just has such a huge effect on everything that you do, and you bring that back. And so missing out on being able to float around or look out the window, or, in some respects, it's see all of my, my crewmates. So I haven't seen Alex since right after landing. I haven't seen Alexei and Oleg since the station. And so you feel this sense of of time passing and the moment ending.
We are T-minus 2 hours and 10 minutes until liftoff of Crew-11, NASA and SpaceX's rotational mission to the International Space Station. In a little less than an hour, we are going to expand coverage with our friends from SpaceX joining our launch broadcast, and we'll come up on camera so you can see us, see Nick live in the flesh here as he steps us through the operations today all the way to liftoff and into orbit. A note about the weather. The launch team and the launch weather officer are discussing conditions both here and along the ascent corridor. Winds are forecast to be picking up around 14 knots and then peaking to 18 knots at launch time. So that is something that they're going to evaluate closely. The winds have to be within a certain range before they'll go forward with prop load. With a delicate operation, it's all automated for SpaceX, but when you start loading a rocket with propellant, a lot of care has to be given to external influences like the weather.
Dragon SpaceX, we're commencing health check for launch escape system. You can expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Dragon copies.
And so you mentioned the weather, and it gets right to the point that they're making here is the weather's got to be good so that we know that the launch escape system can be used, so we can arm that before we start loading that propellant. So at the moment we start loading all this dangerous stuff onto the rocket, we make sure that the crew has got a way to get out of there in a heartbeat if they need to. And onshore winds may seem like, not a big deal, but if you're coming down under a parachute on a capsule that's not supposed to land on land, you want to make sure that you don't drift onto the land. And so that's why they watch all of those conditions.
Critically important, those winds. And so the teams will be evaluating this again just before prop load. Of course, this is a forecast that we see right now, but what actually happens to the winds in the moment that we're getting ready to launch or getting ready to arm the escape system, rather, and then load props could be different. So that's why we watch it in real time. Winds are notably fickle here at the spaceport because of what Nick just said. That sea breeze, it gets kicking up. You can see our flag out by the launch clock right now, starting to blow just a little bit. And so we'll be monitoring that throughout the rest of the countdown going into T-minus 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sight, though, isn't it?
It is indeed. And what has shaped up to be a beautiful day for launch so far. If you're just joining us, we'd like to introduce you to the crew. Crew-11 going into space today consists of the commander, NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from UNC Chapel Hill. Cardman has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic and has supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. She also likes rock climbing and powerlifting in her free time. She trained for Crew-11 as the commander, but was reassigned to Crew-11. And is now the commander here, and she has, by virtue of all that training, a lot of training for a first-time flyer.
She is well prepared. She's been well prepared from day one. She had done a backup flow prior to the Crew-9 assignment. But it was a thrill to be able to go through spend the roughly 18 months leading up to the Crew-9 launch, being able to train side by side with her. She's a phenomenal crewmate and is going to do an amazing job.
Your Crew-11 pilot is NASA astronaut Michael Frink, a veteran of 3 spaceflights. Frink has completed 9 spacewalks, totaling 48 hours and 37 minutes of EVA time, and has spent 382 days in space. Frink is a certified pilot for Boeing Starliner and SpaceX Crew Dragon, as well as a co-pilot, flight engineer on Soyuz, and a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle. Frink enjoys spending time with his family, traveling, geology, and learning new languages. Unlike you, Nick. Michael Frink loves to learn himself a new language.
We are completely different in that regard. No, actually, learning a new language opens up your appreciation for their culture and gives you a deeper understanding. And so even though it was one of the most difficult aspects of training, it's also been one of the most rewarding.
I wanted so badly to learn a second language. I studied French. It did not stick, but I certainly appreciate those who can speak another language. But thank goodness for smartphones and apps that now translate for you. So I feel like I'm missing out on less.
Yeah.
Our mission specialists, let's get to them. JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui is Crew-11 mission specialist number 1 with 142 days in space. This will be Yui's second trip to the space station. Yui flew as a flight engineer for Expedition 4445 and became the first Japanese astronaut to capture JAXA's H-2 transfer vehicle in November 2016. Yui was assigned as chief of the JAXA astronaut group.
Yeah. Learn English and Russian in order to fly to the station. So I guess this is the note that you need to give to all the kids that are listening. I want to grow up and be an astronaut. Probably the one thing you absolutely need to do is know 2 languages or more.
Well, that takes me out.
I said kids, Daryl.
Okay. So you're saying there's still a chance? Mission specialist number 2 is Oleg Platonov. The Crew-11 mission specialist is Roscosmos Cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. This will be his first trip to the International Space Station. He graduated from the Krasnodar Higher Military Aviation School of Pilots with a degree in engineering and military rank of lieutenant. He is married with 1 child, and apparently is the comedian of the group.
I think they all have a pretty good sense of humor.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. And you see that expressed, even as they were just making their way out to the pad and up into the capsule. Lots of smiles, lots of laughter.
We did see that as they were coming across the crew access arm earlier, as they made their way into the spacecraft. T-minus 2 hours and 3 minutes and counting until liftoff of Crew-11.
It's a long wait. Now they're strapped in and there's not much to do. And so you have time to reflect and think about all those, I guarantee you they're thinking about the things they need to do, but they're also thinking about all the people that helped them get into that seat. The training teams, the ops teams, everybody that supported them along the way. Their families, their friends, the ones that have been the support network to get them to this day.
As Crew-11 reflects, we want to reflect on their destination, the International Space Station, one of the most extraordinary labs ever built. Here's a closer look now at how science happening up there in their destination in low Earth orbit is improving life for all of us down here on Earth.
The International Space Station isn't just a symbol. It's a powerhouse of cutting-edge science, constantly revealing secrets that defy Earth's limitations and drive us farther into the cosmos.
Our mission is research and science. We have experiments mounted on the outside of the station that are looking at Earth. We study our own bodies and how they react to space, to weightlessness, to radiation, and that helps not only us go on further in future missions, but also helps for medical research back home. And then we study lots of different things as well, like materials, combustion, all sorts of things that help us understand life back on Earth.
Yeah!
Microgravity doesn't play by the rules. It flips them upside down, transforming how liquids flow, how flames burn, and unraveling biological mysteries before our eyes.
I saw some heart tissues beating in space, and it was incredible.
So Tom, we see that top one beating. Looks like happy heart cells.
But we're not just along for the ride. We're explorers, diving headfirst into the challenge and harnessing the power of this unparalleled platform, just as we have been for decades. We're on a relentless quest for answers, seeking to understand the intricate workings of the human body in space and ensuring future crews stay safe on their daring journeys beyond Earth's orbit.
The human aspect of human space exploration is always going to be very important for decades to come.
And when it comes to technology, we're not waiting around. We're discovering new ways to grow crops in harsh environments and engineering innovations to tackle Earth's greatest challenges.
We have amazing technology that allows us to recycle water and create water for us to drink. It's delicious.
Microgravity isn't just a curiosity, it's a game changer in the fight against diseases back on Earth, paving the way for breakthroughs that benefit us all and enabling new economic opportunities in space.
Welcome Axiom 3 on board the International Space Station.
From our vantage point more than 200 miles above Earth, we are not just spectators. We're gaining unprecedented insights into the world we call home, and we're sharing our findings openly. We're not just achieving results today. We're sparking inspiration in future generations of explorers and embracing the power of global collaboration as we reach for the stars.
What was your favorite experiment on the International Space Station?
Toby, great question. My favorite experiment was the one that I got to eat. It was us growing hatch chili peppers in our plant habitat.
Station Huntsville on 2, we have video in Node 1. Look at those chili peppers.
And as we soar through space at 17,500 miles per hour, each moment is a step closer to unlocking the mysteries of our Earth, our universe, and propelling our pioneering spirit even farther into space. So come along for the ride aboard the International Space Station.
Nick, you spent more than a year cumulatively of time on that International Space Station. When you think back to the things that you work on, what comes to your mind as some of your favorite stuff?
Yeah, there's such a variety up there. Growing stem cells, doing gene editing, working with materials, trying to extrude fiber optics or 3D printing metal or organic tissue, trying to print organs, growing lots of different types of food, whether it's tomatoes or algae or lettuce. It's so fun to be in the middle of all of that, and it's hard to pick a favorite out of all of that. But it's fascinating, and what's been fun is looking from 2019 when I did my first expedition to the most recent expedition, being able to see the growth in complexity of the science that we're able to do up there. When you first start doing things, you're like, I don't even know if it's going to work. And once we start to figure out and adjust, now we're able to start to really reap the rewards of all of that effort.
That's a great point, because when I look at the science that's going aboard this mission, this is pretty advanced stuff. You talked about, stem cells in the early going when you were working with them on station. Now they're trying to figure out how to mass produce stem cells, which can be made at a higher quality and higher yield in microgravity, the environment that the International Space Station provides for scientists that you can't replicate on the ground.
Yeah, we go there to ask questions that we don't know the answer to. And then when we find that answer, it usually leads to a couple more questions. But that's the nature of discovery. That's the nature of building knowledge. And as we gain this knowledge, we start to identify these areas where, hey, this is something that is unique to space that'll bring benefit back down to Earth for everybody. And then we can really start to exploit that.
That is exciting, because in the end, that's what it's for, right? It is not only to advance exploration goals, but also to make life better here on Earth. And And the International Space Station in its 25 years has certainly done that. An update as you watch our operations here. We have a little bit of a lull as the closeout crew in the White Room on top of the launch tower seals up the hatch to the Endeavour spacecraft. That side hatch is how the crew of 4 made their way into the capsule. And now it is the responsibility of the team that you see here to make sure that that door has a good seal, a good tight seal, before it starts to fly hundreds of miles per hour, thousands of miles per hour, and then tens of thousands of miles per hour. So this is a very important job.
Yeah, you're through that hundreds pretty fast.
What's the ride like on the Dragon specifically at liftoff?
It's smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels so smooth.
Liquid propellant?
Yeah, so you don't, like, I never got a chance to fly on the shuttle, but the shuttle was rough because of the solid rocket boosters.
That's what everybody said.
You don't have that, and the thrust level is a little slower here, so it also doesn't, like, throw you off the pad. It's a slow acceleration, but it's a constant increase in that acceleration that just keeps going until you get to, kind of the end of first stage. It's just super smooth. And then when the first stage is done, it separates, and then there's 5 seconds or so before you light the second stage engine per stage, and so you're weightless. And that was completely different than Soyuz, because Soyuz hot stages, and so you never have that period of weightlessness. And so you spend 5 seconds and you're like, okay, we're weightless. I'm ready for it to light. I want to make sure we get there. And then it continues on. And so it's a smooth ride all the way up.
That second stage is a kicker, though, isn't it?
It all starts slow. So the G
ramps
starts
up?
and then it slowly ramps up. So there's not too many jarring moments flying on a Dragon.
We were talking earlier about the science. Let's dive into what Crew-11 will be doing. They will be busy at T-minus 1 hour and 53 minutes until they lift off to get there. We have 2 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut inside Crew-11 right now. Inside of Dragon Endeavour, I should say, on top of a Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. This crew, of course, as you see them right here, headed to the International Space Station to help maintain this very special orbiting lab. Once on board the International Space Station, Crew-11 will become members of Expedition 7374. They will conduct research to develop the production of nutrients in space, such as vitamins. They will also evaluate mass-producing human-induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, to develop cell-based therapies for diseases such as cancer, as well as a possible alternative to antibiotics. Crew-11 will test using phage therapy to treat bacterial infections. And these things are important, and you were telling me this yesterday when we were going over the show and prepping for the show, and I asked you, is an infection or a cut worse in space than it is on ground? And you said yes.
Yeah, our immune systems are suppressed. They don't operate as efficiently in space as they do on the ground. And one of the experiments that I was a subject for up there, and it's an ongoing experiment, is looking at the immune system and just trying to figure out why does it get suppressed like that. But yeah, if you cut yourself and it gets infected up there, it takes longer to heal. So don't cut yourself when you're in space.
I just wrote that down as my notes for when I fly
tip.
one day.
Yes. Pro tip.
Pro tip. Yeah, and if you do, and you were explaining yesterday, if you do cut yourself, that it's not like you know, the blood goes out into space, it holds to your finger because of surface tension. Right?
Yeah, it does. Water does amazing things up there.
Just weird stuff.
If you get water, you know, it floats, and we see all these videos where it's floating as a bubble inside, you know, in front of them. But if you put your finger into that, it just kind of adheres to the surface of your hand and kind of crawls all up your arm, and then it'll stop, and then it becomes body temperature, and then you can't even tell there's water on your hand because there's no motion associated with it because it's just stuck in that one spot. It doesn't exert any weight on your skin. It's the same temperature, so you just don't even know it. And so you'll have water globs on you and just not notice until something gets wet.
Or somebody smells you if it's sweat.
That's true. That's true. It's polite to just hand them a towel.
Team. All right, we're coming up on T-minus 1 hour and 50 minutes. So far, a smooth countdown. We saw Crew-11 at T-minus 4 hours get suited up. They left the astronaut crew quarters about 20 minutes away from here, got into their Teslas, rode out to the pad after saying goodbye to their family members. Under security escort, drove by the vehicle assembly building on the way, which is housing currently a moon rocket scheduled for launch of that crew, a test flight around the moon in early next year. And then they made it to this launch pad 39A, where in a little under 2 hours they will lift off bound for the International Space Station with an instantaneous window of 12:09 and 24 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. We're keeping an eye on the weather. Locally, showing a lot of promise as it's a sunny day, a very hot July day here in Florida, as they typically are this time of year. But the winds have kicked up just a bit. You can see that in the texture on the Atlantic Ocean there. And the launch weather officer is monitoring winds, expected to increase right around the T0. So, as Nick pointed out earlier, that's an important criteria, a launch criteria that they have to monitor so that the launch escape system can operate properly. That would take them out over the Atlantic Ocean. Winds need to be in the right direction and the right strength in order for that system to operate correctly. We're also looking at launch weather here, or rather around the world, along the ascent corridor, where there are areas where, just in case, just like you, when you aborted, there was an area for you to go on land because Soyuz lands on land. With Dragon, you have abort locations along the eastern seaboard and then beyond?
Yeah, you know, effectively it's all the way up the East Coast, and then kind of your last opportunity that you would need, because you'll be in orbit at that point any further on, is just off the coast of Ireland. And so we watch the weather, we watch the sea states. We make sure that, you know, if we needed to go and pick up a crew because they had to abort and they landed in one of those zones, that the search and rescue forces will be able to get into those locations, that the weather's going to be support that kind of operation. And so weather's a little more complex when it comes to spaceflight. You've got to take a global perspective and prepare for all those different contingencies.
We've got the split screen there with Crew-11 on the inside. That camera with a prominent shot of pilot Mike Fink's knees, dead center. But the rest of the crew is also there. To Mike Fink's, to screen left is mission specialist Oleg Platonov. To Fink's left, to our right, moving right to the two positions, would be our commander, Zena Cardman. And to the far, far right, next to the window, is Kimiya Yui.
There's a lot of rights and lefts there, Daryl.
Yeah.
We need some on-screen graphics to make it.
Yes, I think you're right about that. And so after you're done here today, we will be drafting you into our production team.
Oh, okay, great.
Nick. We could use the help. No, we've got a great team that does a great job, but I do appreciate that.
You know, you can make out below the crew cargo.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, so there's cargo supplies for them, but there's also science that they bring up as well as survival equipment. So there's 3 pallets that are below those 4 seats that are chock full of gear.
And the red one is like, that's like first aid kit, possibly?
Your red one is the life raft.
Life raft, okay.
Yeah. So we showed a clip of that in the MBL at the very beginning, where you throw that out and there's a bottle. As you throw it, the rope will extract and then eventually pulls on a bottle that inflates it, and that's what they were crawling inside of in the MBL for training.
It also looked like they had water wings.
Personal flotation devices, yes.
They look like water wings to me, Nick.
Yes, yes. You know, we trained for that kind of thing, so it's a standard you have to meet to be able to, all of you, go from this configuration they're in right now to put on the personal flotation device and get out of the capsule in 90 seconds.
Well, their destination when they launch at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time is the International Space Station, or ISS. This will be commemorating a significant anniversary on November 2nd. When we get to that date, we will have had 25 years of continuous human presence aboard this orbiting laboratory.
And liftoff. International Space Station is underway.
We are in the golden age of the space station right now in terms of the return on investment and what we're able to do there.
One of the great legacies of the space station is not just going to be science, but very importantly, the international cooperation. This is perhaps most prominent, international cooperation for exploration.
Years, you know, every roughly 6 months or so, a crew doing a rotational mission with a handover, and it's been a thrill to be a part of those rotational missions. To be able to just watch the evolution of science and see how we're learning how to really utilize the laboratory to its full potential. I don't know where those clouds came from. They need to blow away. So the crew's sitting in there, T-minus 1 hour and 42 minutes. This is the moment where crew is sitting in there and you don't have a lot to do except reflect. You know, the next big events are when you arm the launch escape system at about 45 minutes, T-minus 45. Prop load will start about T-minus 35. That's when there's activity and you start to bring in focus. Now it's a time-honored tradition in spaceflight to have to endure long moments of waiting for big things to happen. That's a better view. I don't see the clouds. And right now, I'd like to hand it over to Mission Control. The team at Johnson Space Center is tying in with us. How are you guys doing?
Hey Nick, hey Daryl, we're doing good over here. This is Mission Control Houston in the International Space Station's Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The team continues to prepare for launch and is being led today by Flight Director Scott Stover. Today we will be launching the 11th rotational crew mission to the International Space Station under the agency's Commercial Crew Program. Following Crew-11's arrival, the space station will have a total of 11 crew members represented by 3 different agencies aboard for just a few days. Once on board, Crew-11 will go over a brief handover period and procedures with the off-going Crew-10, including a safety briefing and orientation, and then the new crew will jump right in to help advance scientific knowledge and demonstrate new technologies. After a few days of handover activities, the members of Crew-10 will prepare for their undocking and return to Earth. Direct handovers between crews allow for continuity of the activities and helps to ensure a continuous U.S. presence on the space station, which is about to celebrate 25 years of continuous presence in November. Ahead of Crew-10's return, JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi will turn over command of the space station to Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Ryzhikov. The space station is currently in Expedition 73, and in the fall, NASA astronaut Chris Williams and Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Kudzverchkin and Sergei Mikhailov will join the on-orbit crew. Shortly after the departure of the Soyuz MS-27 with NASA astronaut Johnny Kim coming home will mark the commencement of Expedition 74, which will be led by the new commander, Mike Fink. All of this, of course, coming up after today's launch. We continue with the countdown, and with under 2 hours before launch, we'll send it back over to the Kennedy Space Center. Daryl and Nick?
Thank you very much, Sandra. Back here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, T-minus 1 hour and 38 minutes and counting until liftoff of Crew-11 aboard a Falcon 9 rocket. The spacecraft Endeavour, the flight leader currently in the fleet of Dragon spacecraft. It is a lovely day here in Florida. You're looking up in the skies now, and as typical for this time of year, starting to get a little cumulus clouds forming as the cool sea breeze makes its way over land, encountering the warm air here in Florida. Hot and humid air. So we are expecting to get a few cumulus clouds. That was a minor concern for weather. We are still 90% go, but that 10% was for cumulus clouds, and we're starting to see them forming in our shots around the pad. But we're not expecting that to be clumped over top of the pad at T0, so we're still 90% go. One of the first things Crew-11 did, they came together as a team and they designed this patch that you see here. This is a tradition for all spaceflight missions, human spaceflight missions, and science missions. You design a mission patch. And this is the one for Crew-11. The colors of this patch, celebrating the 3 nations they represent. And the 3 stars that you see there, the ones with a starburst, they honor their space agencies working together, the 3 of them, NASA, Roscosmos, and JAXA. The 2 sunbeams that you see coming from the upper right, shining down, well, they make the number 11, shining on a tiny blue dot, our home on Earth. The Dragon looks on, of course, a nod to both the spacecraft and the spirit of exploration, while a red flame wraps around it all, symbolizing the full journey, launch, life in space, and a safe return home. And if you look closely, you can see a tribute to their children in the stars. This is a reminder that the missions like this, as we know, when we got the question from 8-year-old Knox earlier, they help to inspire the next generation. Appreciate all those young folks who are get the bug for space knowledge and to learn about space and exploration, which requires a good foundation in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yeah, it all starts with education. I think kids grow up, children grow up inherently curious. I mean, we've been there and we've asked why, and we've all been in the position where we've had, someone sit there and just continue to ask why. That's really what we're doing on the station with all of our research, all of our exploration. We're asking the question why in a bunch of different ways and trying to find the answers. That we're just wired that way.
Mm. It is so true. And speaking of kids, kids are on the mind of some of our crew members. Talking about Oleg Platonov. He has a child whose toy he is bringing aboard the International Space Station, taking one of his kids' toys so that it will be a spaceflight flown toy when it comes back down to Earth, along, of course, with pictures and some other artifacts. But each one of the crew members gets to take something up, and that's what Oleg's taking.
Yeah. So I hope it's not his kid's favorite toy.
Yeah,
because he's going to be without it for a while. No, but
that might cause more of a problem on Earth.
But it's something absolutely that Oleg's child's going to just cherish the rest of his life, and having the opportunity to bring up little things to be able to give as mementos to friends and family is huge.
Oleg's fellow mission specialist, Kimiya Yui, well, he's bringing a lot of pictures of family, friends, and colleagues. And one of the pictures he's going to take up, he's going to then give back to the people who gave him the photos. So that's a touching thing. We talked earlier in the show about what Mike Fink is bringing up. He's bringing up a Gamasa from the state of Assam. He, of course, said in a press conference recently, he's been married 25 and a half years. To a wife, his wife of Indian origin, and the Gamasa is a silk scarf that carries with it the blessings for his trip to the ISS from her side of the family, and he's taken one not only on this mission, but he's taken that Gamasa on all 3 of his previous missions as well.
Yeah, good luck charm. I'd stick with it. It's working well for him.
That's right. Whatever you took on your first flight, I hope you put somewhere, buried somewhere. No, just kidding.
So I use the same 0G indicator on all 3 flights.
Did you?
Yeah.
You're not. You're like, no, I'm not buying any of this luck stuff. You're like, let's stick with what works.
I trust the people behind it.
That's a great answer. And then, of course, finally, Xena, our commander, she's of course taking, like the rest, photographs of family and friends. But because of her previous assignment to Crew-9, the mission that you ended up commanding, her stuff went up early. And one of the things that she mentioned that she is taking up and shared with the public was that she has some cards that were written by her late father that she included in Crew-9, but now we're coming up on anniversaries in a certain amount of time that he has not been with her, and she gets to now see those cards again when she arrives at the International Space Station.
Yeah, it's truly touching, and it was one of those things. Once Alex and I got to the station, being able to make sure that we got that stuff set aside and ready for her, knowing that she was going to come in trail, and no, it's going to be a special moment for her.
That's right. You actually had her stuff put into place.
Yeah, packaged it all up. Yep. She may even have a birthday gift up there waiting for her. Who knows?
Well, 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 well. Teaser. What is it?
Nice try.
Well, it'll be up to her on whether she shares or not, but we'll stay tuned. We will stay tuned.
Yeah, but you know, those things show you that it is a very human endeavor. We're not just launching satellites into space. There's this exploration aspect, but there's this layer of humanity over the top of it that's so important, and all of these little gestures just bring that to light.
We are currently 1 hour and 30 minutes until liftoff of Dragon, flying Crew-11 to the International Space Station. There you see Endeavour, the capsule at the very top. 6th flight today for that capsule. The number of historic flights that it has under its belt, beginning with Demo 2, and then going on to Crew 2, Axiom 1, Crew 6, Crew 8. Long history with CCP, the Commercial Crew Program, which has a fond place in the hearts of the folks who work for CCP for this spacecraft. Spent a lot of time reviewing data and examining it, getting it ready for each flight that it flew for NASA.
It's a workhorse.
It is, and as you know, spaceflight is hard, so those checks and examination of the data and looking over the critical systems is an important part of making sure that that capsule can continue on. It's currently at its 6th flight, but these spacecraft were only certified for 5. CCP did a recertification, moving it up to 6 flights. Ultimately, SpaceX would like to fly these capsules 15 times. And they say that they have systems that are ready for 15 times reuse. Commercial Crew Program is currently reviewing and looking over the data to determine how much more of the systems need to be reviewed in order to certify it for those additional flights. But that's exactly it. That's the goal here, is to make these spacecraft and rockets reusable, bringing down substantially the cost of spaceflight.
Yeah, and hopefully opening space up to so many more.
As we wait for the upcoming joiner, less than 20 minutes away from joining our friends with SpaceX, as they will continue on with us in our launch coverage. We'll have everybody up on camera. We'll turn our cameras on. They'll turn theirs on, and we'll get to see everybody from our locations around the United States, both here in Florida, in Texas, and California. Let's talk a little bit more about the science, in particular what Crew-11 is going to be working on. One of the questions they're facing is, how do you grow vitamins in space, or even use viruses to help fight bacteria on a spacecraft? Well, for the past year and a half, Crew-11 has been training to support cutting-edge research like this aboard the International Space Station. First up, Bionutrients 3. The study is looking at how to make essential vitamins and nutrients in space so astronauts can stay healthy on long missions. They'll be testing samples like yogurt, kefir, and a yeast-based drink to see how well they work in microgravity. Next up is Stem Cell X IP1, which uses space to grow stem cells. These stem cells can turn into any type of cell in the body and could one day help treat diseases like cancer. Growing them in microgravity may produce more volumes of cells, mass producing them, and better ones than we can make on Earth. And then there's Genes in Space 12. It's testing phage therapy, which uses viruses that could target and kill bacteria. It could be a powerful alternative to antibiotics, especially in space, where infections can become harder to treat. Some really fascinating research happening on board station. In addition to the human research side of things, you were talking about this earlier, each one of these astronauts will be studied, many of their biological functions and their, of course, biological data will be studied at their time comes to a close in space and studied afterwards, studied during, studied afterwards, and possibly it being an 8-month mission.
Yeah, you have the opportunity as crew member to volunteer to be a human test subject for a lot of different experiments that are focused on how does microgravity and the space environment, the high radiation environment, how does that affect human physiology? And it runs the gamut from just muscle and bone health all the way down to genetic structure and how that changes, or how our immune systems might be suppressed. And we've been doing this for 25 years and we're still learning.
Space is hard on the human body, is it not?
It is, but the body is so amazing in how it adapts. It is constantly responding to the environment around us, and we don't really see that on Earth because the changes in the environment around us aren't dramatic enough. But when you pull us out of Earth and put us into space, that dramatic change, you get to watch your body respond to all of that, whether it's spinal growth and straightening that causes you to grow a little bit taller, whether it's the fluid shift and the pressure distribution within your vascular system is more balanced, and you feel that in your head. It goes even to the way you perceive the environment around you and your mental predictions of how things behave. You start to predict and think in weightlessness. All of that adapts, and you've got a front row seat for it, so it's pretty amazing.
Literally. Experiencing the changes happening within your own body. Jessica Muir says she came back and she could actually see better than she did before because of that, the pressure of microgravity exerting differently on her eyeball than it does under being back on the Earth with regular gravity.
Yeah, and we're still trying to understand the root source of why those changes in vision happen, why the changes in our eyes occur. I wish I had her problem because now I'm wearing glasses
as a result of
so
it can go both ways.
It can cut both ways.
Okay. And who knows, Nick, you might have been bound for glasses anyway, no?
Well, I mean, everybody is at some point.
Right.
You just called me old? Is that what happened?
It was very subtle. You did catch it, though.
Yeah, I did.
T-minus 1 hour and 23 minutes. I'm Daryl Nail with NASA Communications, and I'm joined by Nick Hague, NASA astronaut and Brigadier General with the Space Force. We have social questions. Keep them coming. We've had some great ones so far. Just use the hashtag AskNASA and send us those questions on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. We've got a person who's monitoring our social feeds right now, looking for great questions. And here's one from Joshua R. Collins. Does the whole crew have the same doctor, or does each crew member have their own? Is it their regular personal doctor or a NASA medical team doctor?
So each space agency provides a medical team to support their astronauts or cosmonauts. So you'll, for Crew-11 in particular, you're going to have a NASA flight doc team of a surgeon, flight surgeon, primary and deputy, that will support Zena and Mike. And then you're going to have separate medical teams supporting Kimiya and then a Roscosmos team supporting Oleg. Those, in the NASA, if I look at how NASA supports us with medical, the personal doctor is your flight doctor. And so the person that sees you day to day for the years leading up to your mission is the same person that is supporting you throughout your mission, and then after your mission when you're rehabilitating, and then beyond. And so that flight medicine team is one of those key relationships that you develop once you join the astronaut corps.
A flight surgeon for each space agency, and they go with them until they get to the pad, and then they break off. They're there, standing not too far away, just in case they are needed for any reason. But those, exactly as you said, those flight surgeons standing by. Give you a couple upcoming milestones. T-minus 47 minutes. We're going to get an LD brief. That's from the launch director at SpaceX, and we're monitoring weather conditions along the abort corridor. Also keeping an eye on the winds here locally. They picked up a little more than were initially forecast. At T-minus 1 hour, just about 20 minutes from now, the closeout team will depart the pad. That was the team that was getting the crew all ready inside the spacecraft and then sealed up the hatch. They will depart. It'll just be the crew out there on the pad. It'll be them and Dragon Endeavour that you see right there at the top. We've talked a lot about this capsule today. It's taking its 6th space flight. Since its first flight in 2020 for Demo 2, SpaceX's Endeavour Dragon has been a workhorse for NASA's Commercial Crew program, flying mission after mission. It has safely carried astronauts to the International Space Station 5 times. Demo 2, Crew 2 in 2021, Axiom Mission 1 in 2022, Crew 6 in 2023, and Crew 8 in 2024. In all, Endeavour has flown 9 NASA astronauts, 3 space tourists, 2 Roscosmos cosmonauts, 1 retired NASA astronaut, 1 ESA astronaut, and an Arab astronaut from the UAE to and from the International Space Station. Crew-11 marks Endeavour's 6th mission, the flight leader to the ISS. And we leave you now with dancing from Crew-1. Apparently choreographed as well. Look at that.
And they had their act together.
What choreographed dance moves did you do, Nick?
Don't dance. That's one thing that
don't
didn't. That's one thing that didn't translate into space. Yeah, I don't dance on Earth, and I didn't dance in space. But you can do somersaults and flips and twists, though.
Yes, especially as you're zipping around that space station. I mean, it's
fun.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like,
it looks like it.
Every dream you had as a 5-year-old of flying around, and you get to do that every day.
I used to dream that as a kid so often that I could just flap my arms and fly. Yeah. It was a recurring dream that I had, and sometimes I woke up really actually believing that I could fly. I can imagine when you're on the ISS, you wake up and it's like you get to just do it again day after day. Yeah. It's real. That dream is real.
It's your new normal.
Yeah.
And you just have fun with it. You float over and grab your drink bag to rehydrate your morning coffee, and you can do a backflip between that and the water dispenser, and you just play with it. You don't need to use utensils to eat. You can just put the food out in the air in front of you and pretend like you're in an aquarium. So those flags were hanging dead for a while, but they're blowing again.
Yeah, that's the breeze that the forecasters looked at the charts and the data that they have around all the instruments that we have around the Kennedy Space Center. And early this morning forecast an earlier kick up to those winds, and so we're seeing them now. They've got a forecast for 14 knots around liftoff time with a peak of 18 knots. Of course, they're going to reevaluate that here in about 25 minutes or so. And of course, we'll be listening in to the launch communications by the team, making sure we keep you updated to their progress. We have a launch opportunity today at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time, but if for some reason the weather does not work out, we have opportunities the following days. Tomorrow, on Friday, August 1st, where we have an 85% go for weather, with the only concern being potential cumulus clouds like we're seeing today. The only thing there is that the ascent corridor goes up in terms of its risk because there is a trough of disturbed weather coming across the country, and we'll be out into the Atlantic by then. So that is something that they'll have to monitor. That's why today is such a perfect spot, because that is low right now. That potential concern is at a very low state. So fingers crossed that we continue to have green conditions. We're green at the moment, and that's a good sign. We're T-minus 1 hour and 15 minutes until the liftoff of Crew-11 on a Falcon 9 rocket to the International Space Station. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're watching online or streaming, we are glad to have you here with us as we get ready to launch 4 humans to space from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Crew-11 will be the latest crew to fly as part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, which uses private companies to transport people to and from the orbiting lab from U.S. soil. Those people, NASA astronauts, like the one sitting right next to me right now, Nick Hague. It's been a great countdown so far. Weather is 90% go. Got the excitement picking up as we draw closer to our T0. At this point, Nick, the crew has had, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of time to reflect. But the activity is going to start picking up.
Yeah, everything, it's an instantaneous launch window, and so you have to start backing up from that of the things that need to be done. And the big one is right now they're sitting on a rocket that's empty. So they're not going anywhere unless they put some juice in the rocket. So that's going to start around the T-minus 35 time frame. And before we start to load all of that, those explosive materials, we need to make sure that the launch escape system is armed. And so we'll go through a debrief prior to that to make sure everybody's good. Then we'll arm the launch escape system and then start with that prop load. So there's some big things, and as you're sitting there, the reality of the situation, you understand how once they make the decision to go, once we launch that launch escape or arm that launch escape system, you're on a live rocket. And if something goes wrong, the system can make a decision that it's going to automatically pull you to safety. And it's designed to do that. You want it to do that. But you also realize that, in a fraction of a second, you could be in a very different situation than you are right there.
You would know that well, as your mission had an in-flight abort in 2018 while flying Soyuz MS-10. But that launch escape system worked perfectly and brought you and your crewmate down safely to ground, to your family. And you dusted off your boots, got back on 5 months later, and successfully got into space on MS-12. So that launch escape system is a critical component to a successful mission.
Absolutely, and we test them rigorously. And SpaceX did an in-flight abort test. They've done pad abort tests. They've shaken this system out to make sure that when you need it, it'll be there for you.
This will be a 38.8 hour transit from the ground here at Kennedy to docking to the International Space Station. So the crew that you see there, I hope they have some audiobooks and some movies.
Well,
that's a long time.
There's an opportunity. There are 2 windows, and there's a heck of a view out there.
No doubt.
And but they're not going to spend 40 hours strapped into seats like that. After they get into orbit, once the nose cone opens and they're kind of clear of the second stage, the upper stage, they'll be able to unstrap and take those suits off. They'll dry them out and put them away, and then they'll be essentially in short sleeve shirt, pants, and it's a pretty comfortable, spacious place to hang out in. And they'll be camping in Dragon for 40 hours until they get to the station. A few hours before they get to the station, they'll have to get back in the configuration that you see them here, do their leak checks with the suits. All stuff very similar to actually getting in the capsule on the launch pad.
Is it roomy in there? It doesn't look roomy from this shot, but I know there's a lot more to Dragon than what we're seeing right here.
Yeah, it is quite roomy. There's a whole bunch of volume, and when you're in space, you think about floating, you think about volume and not necessarily surface area, and so the volume you don't see is above the displays. You can fit a couple people up in the space on the top of the screen that's off screen that you just can't see. And then down by the cargo underneath their feet, there's a whole bunch of space down there. So those footrests you can take off, kind of stuff them under the seats. It creates this nice big volume. You can pull out your food and your drinks. You can stick things to the walls. And, you know, but it's like camping in a SUV. There's room, but you're still in an SUV.
And you got to communicate, like, hey, excuse me, can I get over there, or can I get around you? And
yeah, you know, let me put up the privacy curtain. I have to use the restroom.
You're looking at a live view of Crew-11 at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Stay right here. In just a few moments, we'll be expanding our live launch coverage. Good morning. You're watching live launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's 11th rotational flight to the International Space Station. I'm NASA's Daryl Nail, joined once again by NASA astronaut Nick Hague, who's been with us for the past 3 hours. Liftoff is set for 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time from Launch Pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. And before we continue, a quick reminder about Nick's incredible experience in space. General Nick Hague was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2013. His first flight to the space station in 2018 ended in a launch abort following a rocket booster failure on Soyuz MS-10, a dramatic escape that he and his Roscosmos crewmate survived safely. He returned to space in 2019. Here on Soyuz MS-12, spending 203 days on the ISS, and last fall, he commanded NASA's SpaceX Crew-9 mission there, as you see him getting ready to go with cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. In total, Nick has logged 373 days in space and completed 4 spacewalks. It's so great to have you here today as you've been sharing your experience, the lessons you learned, your experience in space, and some of the human emotions that every astronaut goes through on a day like today.
Yeah, no, Daryl, it's a thrill to be here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. We're getting ready to launch 4 humans into space. It is such an amazing thing that is so hard to do, and to be able to witness it and then just be a part of that legacy of doing it over and over again for decades is a thrill.
And a great responsibility by all involved. Crew-11 is launching from Pad 39A, and we're now just over an hour away. Once they arrive at the station, they'll join Expedition 7374, and in just 3 days, Crew-10 will return home. This will be what's called a quick 3+2 crew handover. You were Crew-9. You get a little time with the crew that's coming up, and it's important time.
It is, because you're living on the space station, so you train for how to work all the systems, but the real living aspect of it is something that you can really only do in microgravity, in that weightlessness, and it really is something that you try to maximize.
All right, let's take you through Crew-11's launch day preparations so far this morning. Nick Hague has been with us throughout. After waking up and grabbing a bite to eat, the crew suited up inside the historic crew quarters, a tradition that dates back decades. SpaceX teams helped them into their custom pressure suits, and just like the other crews before them, they gathered around a table for a card game to burn off any lingering bad luck before launch. After that, They followed in the footsteps of every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968, walking out to greet a crowd of family, friends, and supporters with a big wave. Then it was into their Teslas for a security-escorted ride out to Launch Pad 39A, a 20-minute journey filled with anticipation as they drove up with their rocket in sight. Once there, they looked up, got a close-up look at the rocket, walked through the crew access arm, and climbed into their spacecraft. And now, there they are at the top of this rocket, inside that Endeavour capsule, and they are awaiting the next big milestones, the fueling of the rocket and the arming of the launch escape system. Throughout the broadcast, we are taking your questions to Nick Hague. Just use the hashtag AskNASA on the platforms Facebook, YouTube, X, and Twitch. We really want to hear from you. So send us those questions. He's got answers, and he's got good ones. Also, if you're watching YouTube, be sure to refresh your player or browser so you can join our live chat. At this time, we are expanding our coverage to include our partners at SpaceX. So let's welcome in the SpaceX and NASA commentators joining us live from Hawthorne, California, home to the SpaceX mission team. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Daryl. So excited to be joining you and Nick Hague here and Joseph. I'm Somi Srivastava, a certification engineer here at SpaceX.
And I'm Joseph Zakshevsky with NASA Communications, and you're absolutely right. It's a thrill to be here today, and exciting to be joining you again from Mission Control here in Hawthorne as we count down to liftoff of Crew-11 just over an hour from now. Crew-11 is our 11th operational mission with SpaceX, flying astronauts for long-duration missions to the International Space Station, and the 12th as a part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program with SpaceX. Crew-11 has 2 first-time flyers on board, as well as a veteran NASA astronaut and a veteran Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA astronaut, making their return to microgravity. The multinational crew also represents 3 different space agencies: NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos.
Today's crew will fly aboard Dragon Endeavour, which was the first operational Dragon to carry crew on board during SpaceX and NASA's Demo 2 mission in 2020 with astronauts Bob and Doug. Endeavour has been pretty busy since then, having also flown NASA's Crew 2 mission, AX-1, and NASA's Crew 6 and Crew 8 missions. This will be the first Dragon to fly 6 times. Overall, for the Dragon fleet, this will be Dragon's 49th visit to the space station and its 19th human spaceflight mission overall, and the 5th Dragon flight just this year.
Now, over the last 3+ hours, Crew-11 has been going through all the detailed process of getting ready for their mission, as you've been following along with Nick and Daryl from the Cape to the International Space Station. So let's introduce you to the crew. In the commander's seat is NASA astronaut Zena Cardman, who will be conducting her first spaceflight. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Cardman has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic and has supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. Now, to the next of Zena is going to be pilot Mike Fink, a veteran of 3 spaceflights. Fink has completed an impressive 9 spacewalks, totaling 48 hours and 37 minutes of the time spent outside the orbiting laboratory. And he's also spent a total of 382 days in space, and Fink is certified pilot for the Boeing Starliner, as well as SpaceX Crew Dragon, a part of the NASA's Commercial Crew Program, as well as the co-pilot and flight engineer on Soyuz, and a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle, STS-134, that was Space Shuttle Endeavour, and fitting that he flies on Dragon Endeavour today. Serving as a mission specialist, or pardon me, Sonia, is serving as a mission specialist is going to be Japan Aerospace and JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui.
Yeah, and today's flight will be Yui's 2nd trip to the space station. He was selected as an astronaut by JAXA in 2009 and has logged 142 days in space. And to round it all out, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov is also serving as a mission specialist and was selected as a cosmonaut in 2018 and will be making his first space flight today.
Now, as we get closer to 1 hour away from liftoff, let's take a look at what's going to be happening with Crew-11 once on board the International Space Station. Crew-11 will briefly become members of Expedition 73 and then Expedition 74 in the fall. Following departure of Soyuz MS-27 spacecraft, that's when the expeditions will change over, and that departure will feature NASA astronaut Johnny Kim. They'll also conduct space station maintenance and scientific research to understand plant cell division, finding alternatives to antibiotics in microgravity, investigate producing essential nutrients on demand for long-duration missions, and study how spaceflight affects human physiology and psychology. The crew will also engage with students worldwide via the ham radio and use its existing hardware with newly integrated software to test a